Dr. Isabel Lean had spent 3 years translating the Codex Immersive, and on a Tuesday evening in October, she finally understood why no scholar had bothered to finish it before her. The medieval grimoire wasn't difficult. It was written backward. She sat in her university office, the manuscript spread beneath her desk lamp like a patient on an operating table. Outside, rain scratched at the window with fingers that wanted in. The heating system knocked and whispered through the walls, a language older than the building itself. Mirror script, every word reversed, every letter flipped. She'd seen it before in Da Vinci's notebooks, a simple encoding method meant to be read by holding the text up to a mirror. Children's secret codes, really? Nothing sinister about it, but the codex was different. Its pages felt wrong under her fingers, too smooth, too cold, like touching the surface of dark water. The parchment should have been brittle after 6 centuries, yet it remained supple as skin. Isabel positioned her compact mirror and began reading the summoning ritual aloud. The words felt awkward in her mouth, consonants colliding like stones tumbling downhill. She spoke them carefully, precisely, her voice the only sound in the office besides the clock's patient heartbeat and the rain's insistent pleading. Nothing happened. The candles she'd arranged, a scholar's pretense at academic thoroughness, continued their steady burning. The circle of salt remained unbroken. The autumn night pressed against her window, ordinary and indifferent. Isabel sat back, disappointment settling over her shoulders like a familiar coat. Of course, nothing happened. Demons weren't real. Magic was metaphor. She'd known that, had always known it, but some small part of her, the part that still checked under beds and avoided cracks in sidewalks, had hoped. She looked at the text again, read it without the mirror, just to see what nonsense the words became when reversed. The syllables emerged differently this time, smooth and inevitable as water finding its level. They didn't feel awkward now. They felt like coming home, like words her tongue had always known but forgotten. The rhythm pulled her forward, each phrase leading to the next with the certainty of rain running downhill. The candles went out, all of them simultaneously, as if a great hand had pressed down on the room. In the darkness, Isabel heard the salt circle crack, not break. Crack like ice on a warming pond. The sound spread in a perfect ring around her, and she understood with sudden, crystalline clarity that something had left, not entered. The emergency lights clicked on, bathing everything in their leprous glow. Isabel's hands shook as she reached for her phone, pulling up news feeds with trembling fingers. Reports were already flooding in. Churches across the city, across the world, had gone dark at the same moment. Not just dark, silent. Every bell stopped mid-ring, every prayer caught in every throat. Witnesses described a feeling of sudden, profound absence, as if something that had always been present had simply stepped away. Isabel looked back at the codex, really looked at it, and saw what she'd missed. The marginalia she dismissed as decorative flourishes weren't decorations at all. They were warnings, written the same mirror script, screaming across 6 centuries. Do not read correctly. Do not speak the words as written. What we bound must stay bound. Her mind raced backward through her research. Every protection symbol she'd studied, every banishment ritual, every exorcism rite, all written in mirror script, all meant to be read reversed. They'd never been summoning demons. They'd been sending them away, keeping them away. And humanity, in its ignorance, had been performing these rituals backward for centuries, never knowing that each bungled ceremony was actually a successful warding. Each failed summoning was a triumph. Each protective circle, when drawn incorrectly by trembling hands in basement rec rooms and dorm rooms, had actually worked. The churches hadn't gone dark because something entered them. They'd gone dark because something left. Isabel's phone buzzed with a text from her colleague Chris. Something's wrong with St. Patrick's Cathedral. Shadows moving wrong. inside the walls. "We've had it backward, haven't we?" She typed back with numb fingers, "Yes." Another message, "How do we fix it?" Isabel looked at the codex inverses, at centuries of careful, deliberate mistakes that had kept humanity safe through pure, blessed ignorance. She thought about all the rituals that would need to be reversed, all the protection that would need to be incorrectly reinstated. She thought about whether anyone would believe her. The rain had stopped. In the new silence, Isabel heard something else. A sound like breathing, but it came from beneath her, from below the building, from down in the earth where the city's foundations touch bedrock and older things still. "I don't know if we can," she typed. Outside her office window, the streetlights began to flicker and fail. One by one, darkness spreading through the city like ink through water. Amanda Reeves moved into 42 Maple Street on a Saturday in April. When the neighborhood smelled like cut grass and possibility, the house was small but hers, finally hers. With yellow shutters and a mailbox that tilted slightly to the left like a question mark. Claire from next door arrived within the hour, carrying fresh-baked cookies on a plate covered with checkered cloth. She had kind eyes and laugh lines, the sort of woman who remembered birthdays and watered plants for vacationing neighbors. "Welcome to the neighborhood," Claire said, and her smile was warm as summer stones. "I'm so glad someone friendly finally moved in." Amanda took the cookies, chocolate chip still warm, and felt something tight in her chest relax. This was what she'd wanted. A fresh start. A place where no one knew about the divorce or the breakdown, or the 6 months she'd spent sleeping on her sister's couch. They became friends the way women sometimes do, quickly and completely. Coffee on Tuesday mornings. Walks around the block on Thursday evenings. Claire volunteered at the animal shelter. Amanda started volunteering there too. Claire took up watercolor painting. Amanda bought a set of paints and discovered she had a knack for it. It felt natural, this mirroring. They were kindred spirits, after all. Two women of similar age, similar situations, finding comfort in each other's company. But then Amanda noticed the timeline. It happened on a Wednesday in June. She'd ordered Thai food for dinner the night before, pad see ew extra spicy. The next evening, she saw the same takeout containers in Claire's recycling bin, the same restaurant, the same dish, judging by the receipt tucked inside. A coincidence. Had to be. Except the pattern continued, spreading like cracks in ice. Amanda bought a navy cardigan on Monday. Claire wore an identical one on Tuesday. Amanda mentioned craving strawberry ice cream on Saturday afternoon. Claire served it at their coffee date Sunday morning. Amanda started watching a new series on Thursday. Claire recommended the same show Friday, describing plot points from episodes that hadn't aired yet. Always one day behind, always perfectly synchronized. Amanda began testing it. She bought an unusual book, a biography of an obscure botanist, and watched Claire's shelves. 3 days later, there it sat, spine uncracked, positioned exactly where Amanda kept hers. She changed her routine, started drinking tea instead of coffee. Claire did the same the next day. She wore her hair in a braid. Claire's appeared braided 24 hours later. She hummed a song no one else could possibly know, a lullaby her grandmother had made up, and heard Claire humming it the following afternoon. The theory formed slowly in Amanda's mind, like frost creeping across glass. She wasn't the one being copied. She was doing the copying. The thought arrived complete and terrible, and once it came, she couldn't unknow it. Every choice she'd made since moving to Maple Street had been made by Claire first. Every preference, every habit, every small piece of personality she'd claimed as her own. Claire had demonstrated it all exactly one day earlier. Amanda had thought she was painting because she discovered a talent for it. But Claire had been painting first, hadn't she? Amanda had thought the animal shelter volunteer work was her idea, her compassion, her choice. But Claire had mentioned it first, had planted the seed, had shaped the soil where Amanda's thoughts grew. She went through her memories like files in a cabinet, pulling them out, examining them in harsh light. The divorce. Had that been her decision or something Claire mentioned in passing? The breakdown. Had those been her emotions or echoes of something she'd overheard? Even her name felt borrowed now, like a coat she'd found in a closet and assumed was hers. Who had she been before 42 Maple Street? What did Amanda Reeves actually like, actually want, actually feel? She couldn't remember. The memories were there but distant, like photographs taken through dirty glass, blurred, unreliable. Someone else's story she'd convinced herself she'd lived. Claire knocked on her door that evening, holding another plate of cookies, chocolate chips still warm. "I made extras," Claire said, and her smile was kind as always. "Thought you might want some?" Amanda took the plate with hands she no longer recognized. Were these her hands? Her fingers? Had she always had that freckle on her wrist, or had Claire shown her one first? "Thank you," Amanda heard herself say, and even her voice sounded like an imitation, a copy of a copy degraded by repetition. Claire lingered in the doorway, and for just a moment, something flickered behind her eyes. Recognition, maybe, or satisfaction, or pity. Amanda couldn't tell. She didn't know what emotions looked like anymore. Didn't know which feelings were hers to name. "Same time tomorrow?" Claire asked. "For our walk." Amanda nodded because nodding was what she did, what she'd been shaped to do. What Claire had done first, once long ago, when Amanda had still been someone. She watched her neighbor walk away, back to the house next door, back to the original life that Amanda had been slowly photocopying over her own existence. The cookies sat heavy in her hands. She couldn't remember if she even liked chocolate chip. She couldn't remember if she ever had. Chris Peters sealed the final edge of the plastic sheeting with methodical precision, his gloved hand smoothing the tape until no gaps remained. The room gleamed white as bone, white as teeth, white as the antiseptic truth he'd been chasing for 17 years. Perfect. Finally perfect. He'd spent 3 months converting his apartment's spare bedroom into this sanctuary. Medical-grade air filtration hummed in the corner like a mechanical prayer. UV lights sterilized every surface hourly. The walls were lined with antimicrobial panels that cost more than his car. The floor was epoxy-sealed, seamless, easy to disinfect. No dust, no bacteria, no contamination. Chris had read somewhere that the average home contained 2 million dust mites. 2 million microscopic horrors feeding on dead skin cells, defecating where people slept and ate and lived. The thought had kept him awake for 72 hours straight, scrubbing and cleaning until his hands bled, and even the blood felt dirty. But that was before the clean room, before sanctuary. He stripped in the adjacent chamber, leaving his clothes in the designated bin. Showered with antibacterial soap for exactly 10 minutes. He'd timed it, then dried with a fresh disposable towel. The air dryer finished the job, hot wind scouring any remaining moisture, any lingering contamination. The inner door opened with a pneumatic hiss. Chris stepped inside, and for the first time in 17 years, he felt something close to peace. The silence was absolute. Even the air filtration system operated below human hearing, a whisper beneath consciousness. White walls reflected white light from white fixtures. The room existed outside of dirt, outside of decay, outside of the biological chaos that defined the world beyond these walls. Chris sat on the sterile floor and breathed air that had been filtered 7 times. Clean air. Pure air. Air that wouldn't poison him slowly, particle by particle. Hours passed. Or maybe minutes. Time felt different here, cleaner somehow, unmeasured by the dirty accumulation of seconds. But then his stomach gurgled. The sound was obscene in the silence, wet and organic. Chris pressed his hand against his abdomen and felt it shift beneath his sterile palm. Movement. activity, things happening inside him that he couldn't control or clean or stop. His intestines, he knew, contained trillions of bacteria. Trillions. More bacterial cells than human cells in his entire body. He was a walking ecosystem, a teeming colony of microscopic life that digested his food, produced his vitamins, kept him alive. He was the contamination. The thought arrived with the weight of revelation, and once it came, Chris couldn't unfeel the squirming reality of his own biology. His skin, 3 million bacteria per square inch, feeding on his sweat, reproducing, dying, being replaced. His mouth, 700 species of microorganisms, more varied than a rainforest. His eyelids hosted mites that burrowed into follicles, eating dead cells, mating, laying eggs. He was not clean. He could never be clean. The call was coming from inside the house. Chris stood on legs that felt borrowed and festive. His reflection in the polished wall showed him a man-shaped terrarium, a walking petri dish maintaining perfect conditions for countless organisms that weren't him. That had never been him. That used him as real estate, as food source, as host. The clean room couldn't help, couldn't save him, because the dirt he'd been trying to escape lived in every cell, every pore, every hollow space inside his body. He thought about the intestines first. 6 meters of tubing packed with bacterial colonies, processing food into waste, breaking down everything he consumed into its constituent parts. Without them, he'd die. But with them, he was never alone, never singular, never truly himself. His hands moved to his throat, not to hurt. He wasn't thinking about hurt, but to feel. The carotid pulse beneath his fingers carried blood cells and plasma and antibodies, and 1,000 other components he couldn't name. Living things, moving things, things that would keep moving and living even after Chris Peters ceased to be a coherent entity. The air filtration kicked in with a soft cycle, pulling particulates from the atmosphere, but it couldn't filter him, couldn't sterilize the source. He needed to be cleaner, purer, needed to eliminate the contamination at its root. There were products in the bathroom, cleaning supplies he'd stockpiled, industrial strength disinfectants, things that killed everything, things that made surfaces sterile and safe. Chris walked to the door, his mind arranging the plan with the same methodical precision he'd used to seal the plastic sheeting. If external cleaning didn't work, if the room couldn't save him, then he'd have to go deeper. Internal sterilization, chemical purification. The doctors wouldn't understand. They'd call it madness, call it obsession, call it disease. But Chris knew the truth. The dirt was inside him, had always been inside him. And the only way to be truly clean was to eliminate it entirely, to scour himself empty, to achieve the sterile purity he'd been seeking since that first night 17 years ago when he'd looked at dust under a microscope and seen the universe crawling. His hand rested on the bathroom door handle. Beyond it, cleaning supplies, solutions, methods, ways to address the contamination he'd been carrying all along. The clean room waited behind him, pristine and perfect and completely useless against the enemy that wore his face and spoke with his voice and lived in every breath he took. Chris turned the handle. The door opened like a mouth,